for many of us. So a little bit about Lan. She's the founder and CEO of Community of Seven, and Community of Seven is a membership community of thought leaders, change makers, and executives. She's also an award-winning marketer and strategist with over 20 years of experience. She also has expertise in organizational and behavioral psychology. She's considered to be a leading global expert on membership and community building. She's been a speaker at renowned venues such as the South by Southwest Conference, United Nations, and she also consults with many CEOs and C-suite executives. And on top of that, she's a proud alum of Stanford and Harvard. Pretty amazing person. So welcome, Lan.
Thanks so much, Lee. So excited to be here. Thank you for the invite, Christine and Tanya. So excited to start the conversation.
So I have several questions for you, but sometimes when we read people's bios, we don't always really get to understand where they came from. And, we all know, your roots and your origin are just sort of, how you've become who you are today. So can you share a little bit about your origin story?
I'd love to. So my parents are Vietnamese refugees, and we came to the United States when I was a few months old. My father would have been in prison or killed if we had stayed. My mom, my dad, and my two brothers escaped war-torn Vietnam with literally the clothes on our backs. And when I say we left with nothing, we left with nothing. And it was an American family that sponsored us. It was a churches that clothed us. Our family of five lived in a studio apartment on Mission Street in San Francisco for the first few years. We were able to flourish because the community really came together to support us. And that's why I've had such a fascination with community. I always joke around that I was kind of born in my mother's womb looking for community. We later moved to Los Angeles to be closer to family. And I grew up in Inglewood, California, and later Hawthorne, California in Los Angeles. My father was disabled, so it was my mother who supported my family. First on her income, folding laundry at the LAX. I don't know if you guys ever been to LAX, but there's this dome and it used to have a restaurant in it. It's kind of like a big LA landmark, but she would fold laundry because there wasn't as much opportunities for refugees at that time. With limited, education and resources. And then later, similar to you, Lee, my mother got into hair and nail. So after going to high school in LA, I ended up going to Stanford University on scholarship. I majored in psychology and I eventually went to Harvard to get my master's in teaching curriculum. After graduation, I was a school teacher for a few years, became a booking agent where I met Christine Padilla, then a real estate investor, and then I went into marketing for 20 years. So I spent a big chunk of that time at the ANA leading membership and working with big brands like P&G, Unilever, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Disney, Google. I was kind of an entrepreneur, so someone who goes into companies and builds businesses within companies. And I helped them, like the ANA, build their CMO Master Circle. I was also the general manager for See Her, which is a gender equality initiative for the advertising and broadcast industry. And my last stint was at Fortune magazine, helping build Fortune Connect.
That's great. Now, I love hearing that story. And I know I'm sure many of you in the audience, we can all resonate with that, right? And it's just when we look back at our roots, when we look back at our parents and how it sort of helped, sort of inspire our own lives. So it's wonderful to hear your story. So speaking of what you're doing today, so I follow Community of Seven, and I'm always inspired by the daily posts, which are definitely like a daily dose of inspiration and motivation. Can you tell us a little bit about how Community of Seven started and how it's evolved?
Yeah, so I founded Community of Seven at the start of the pandemic, literally at the start of the pandemic. To give you a little bit of context, and for the folks who are kind of might not know the story, I had been recruited by Alan Murray, who's a CEO of Fortune magazine, to create this startup within Fortune magazine called Fortune Connect. I was given a multi-million-dollar budget and was supposed to basically build this product from from ideation to launch in 6 months, which is really ambitious when you think of startups, right?
Mhm.
So I was supposed to hire this huge team. I got to hire number 5, and then COVID happened. And I learned that not only did I get laid off, what's worse was I had to lay off my entire team. And some of them had literally left jobs to come work for me a week prior. So I was devastated. I had literally gone into a state of depression, was crying every day uncontrollably, you know, 8 pints of ice cream, maybe gallons of ice cream every day.
Mhm.
And it was really 2 things that got me out of my spiral. It was my daughter telling me, "Mommy, I love you," even without a job. She would also say, "One day I am going to be a boss and hire you." So that really kind of got me out of my stupor. And the second thing was there was a voice in my head. I'm the type of person who prays throughout the day. Um, and there was a voice in my head that said, "Serve others." Um, and, I would kind of talk in my head. I'm like, what do you mean serve others? I can't even serve myself. I don't even have a job. I just got laid off. I don't even know how I'm going to pay my mortgage. But it just kept on popping up, serve others. And so on the 7th day after I'd gotten laid off, I woke up with the name Community of Seven. And I literally came up with this name, but I had no business model. I had no idea what I was building. So that night I searched Google Community of Seven, and it wasn't taken. So I went on Wix and I bought the site, and I actually built the website. For context, the last time I built a website was my senior year at Stanford University in the 90s. Um, and so I kind of just learned, and I just built the website. And, you know, I realized that I had to build a business based on my values and what was important to me, and it was essentially, how can I help as many people in my lifetime? So I came up with the name Community of Seven, but it really took me a while, over a year, 2 years, to really figure out what the business model would look like. So part of that was unlearning everything I learned in corporate America and even building startups, and really kind of leaned into what I was passionate about. And one of my big observations was, in the past, I would find jobs because a certain title or a certain pay, or, it was, it was a position that was coveted. And what I realized is none of that would really matter to me. What really mattered to me was my family. What really mattered to me was my faith. And so I really kind of created a company that was based on what was most important to me. Because, before I would say that family is important to me, but then I would come home 10 o'clock at night and not see my daughter. There was a disconnect. So literally, I joke around and say that I was literally, building the plane while I was flying it, while I was building Community of Seven. I didn't know what I was creating. I just knew that my business would be called Community of Seven. And the reason why it's called Community of Seven is 3 things. I remember I told you I was on hire number 5, and then I got laid off. So I was told by management and HR not to tell my team that they were laid off. And of course, I told them right away. And I was like, we're going to change our mission from building a business to finding you your next job, or I'm going to build my business and hire you back. And so during that time, we would get on the call, almost every day. And there was 5 of them, me, which is 6, and my daughter Morgan, who was 5 at the time in kindergarten, would join us. So that was kind of the original reason for Community of Seven. There's other reasons too. What I tell corporate, companies, what does Community of Seven means? 7 is the ideal number for any type of meeting. If you go past 7, the meeting loses productivity by 10%, each person you add. And the other thing is 7 is the number of completion, and my faith is something that guides me. So for me, that's the other element of why I called it Community of Seven. So essentially, built Community of Seven, didn't have a business model, didn't have any advertising budget, right? So, because I'm trying to pay my mortgage and I just got laid off. So I started posting on LinkedIn and Facebook daily. And in the beginning, it was really just my brother Van liking my post. And then I would just say, I'm just going to post every day and I want to try to help someone reading this. So gradually it started to increase the readership, right? And I remember that after a few months posting daily, I had one post that went viral, right? It got 30,000 likes on LinkedIn and 1 million views. And I was like, what the heck happened, right? So it grew quickly from there. And collectively, between my personal profile on LinkedIn and Community of 7, we have over 300,000 followers in the past, that has grown in the past 2 years, mainly on LinkedIn, but I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. So please follow Community of 7 or me if you can. However, I've never been motivated by followers or likes. I'm an introvert by nature, so I don't really want anyone following me. So my KPI, or key performance indicator, has always been, how can I influence and help one person reading this? So as long as I've helped one person reading it, my mission has been accomplished. So when I reflect on it, there's so much power to owning your voice. And I look at the Community of 7 posts, and we get over 7 million views on each month on LinkedIn alone on the post. So I think about how many lives can be impacted and inspired, and so that's what really kind of motivates me. In terms of the business model of Community of 7, it took me probably a year of basically no income for a full year, and I was basically funding the business through my severance and through my savings. And I went through that pretty quickly, right? And I realized that what I was really creating was a community. So, I created this, in my past experience, I worked with a lot of chief marketing officers and executives. So that was kind of my network. And I started this call called Let's Talk, where I brought in different executives to talk about what mattered most to them. And that was kind of the kernel that we planted. And then it kind of grew from there. And I was like, what I'm really trying to create is a membership community for people who are looking to really change the world. And it's mainly executives, thought leaders, change makers, people who are purpose-driven leaders, who understand that before we can change the world, we need to change ourselves. How do you become your best self physically, mentally, emotionally? And so that was the first part. I realized that I was creating a membership community, and there's really two communities. One is a core community where it's invite only. And then I launched a supporter membership that's just $99 a year, because I really wanted to, I realized that, especially for women of color or just people in general, there's a really big disconnect in terms of executive training, because I was way into my 40s before I really was able to get my company to pay for an executive coach, right? And so I think the big gap between success for people is that getting that training and development. And I was like, how can I help as many people as possible? So I created this supporter membership for $99 a year. We have these coaching circles, and you can just kind of learn and grow, because normally executive coaching could cost upwards of $400 or $500 an hour, and upwards of $60,000, $40,000 for 6 months. So usually executive training in these big corporations are reserved for the elite few, and you kind of know what the elite few look like, right? So I wanted to kind of democratize it. And the other part of Community 7 is I work with Fortune 500 companies, and I do programming centered around belongingness and community, and on a leadership, as well as diversity and inclusion. For example, I'm doing a programming for Carta right now, and really kind of focusing on how do you advance leadership within the organization. So that, in a nutshell, is how Community 7 was created.
That's great. It's such a wonderful story, and I'm glad that you listened to that voice. And it's great to hear that your daughter was also a voice and present at the beginning of your company as well. And like I said earlier, I'm a follower and a member of Community of 7. And I think watching your posts, and I know that you're really honest in your posts. You talked about one that went viral, and you talk about different lessons that you learned throughout your career. What would you say are like the top 2 lessons that you'd like to share with us?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I promise I won't go too long, but I'm going to give you 7, just to kind of community of 7, right?
Sure.
I'm just really partial to the number 7 as well. So number 1, stop caring what other people think of you. What they think of you is none of your business. And the sooner you can let go of the need to please other people, that includes well-meaning parents, friends, significant others, you'll be on the road to really figuring out who you are. So that goes for strangers you don't know on social media, on Instagram, right? I'm so pissed about how social media has created a generation of little girls and boys with body images, right? Because we're taught to create these perfect curated lives, and that's not real. So stop caring what other people think of you. Number 2 is stop striving for perfection. Stop striving perfection, because it does not exist, right? Instead of striving for perfection, strive for progress. You have to just start, and you have to constantly optimize every day. And if you're scared, start scared. Let go of the need to be perfect. So many people don't even start because they want it packaged, they want it perfect. And that's not how life works, right? Number 3, everything you want is on the other side of fear, right? That's one of my favorite quotes by Jim Rohn. Stop doubting yourself. There is enough people in the world trying to tear other people down. Don't add to the dog pile, right? Bet on yourself. Number 4, I just posted this recently. Be brave enough to suck at something new. Every expert, every master, if you look at, the deceased Kobe Bryant to like all of these people who you admire, right? They were once novices. They once sucked. And the key thing is just start. Be okay with being terrible in the beginning. Be okay with being mediocre in the middle. And if you're be okay with wherever you are in the process. I was, when I was younger, I would quit things, or I wouldn't even start because I knew I couldn't be the best at it. And I look back and I'm like, that's so stupid, right? I was deathly scared. This is kind of funny. I was so afraid of karaoke. And and I would never go when my friends would go. I would never sing. I would be the wallflower in the back, because I just wasn't a great singer. And I think about all the missed opportunities and fun I didn't have because I was so embarrassed. Like I didn't want to suck at something, right? And sometimes the win is really conquering your fears. Sometimes the win is learning something new, and sometimes the win is making friends in the process. The key is you have to embrace it all. Number 5, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Another Jim Rohn quote. Carefully curate who you spend the most time with. Our circle of connections, whether they're our friends, our family, the people who we spend the most time with, they're shaping who we are. So be very cognizant of the people you let in your life. If you feel emotionally drained after you get on a call with a friend or someone who you associate with, that's probably a sign that you need to give some space to that person. Surround yourself with people who are uplifting you. I don't have time to be, time is too short for you to spend it with people who are trying to drag you down. Number 6, invest in you. It's really important. Invest in you. What books are you reading? Who are you spending the most time with? What are you consuming physically and mentally? Are you creating boundaries and setting expectation for those around you? Have you been taking care of yourself through good sleep, exercise, and nutrition? Because here's the thing, you can't fill from an empty cup. Let me repeat this. You can't fill from an empty cup. As the Bible emphasizes, your cup must runneth over. Self-care is not about being selfish. I will also say that it's selfish for you not to take care of yourself, because you can never give to anyone else unless you're whole. It's kind of like a bank account. If you keep on taking withdrawals and you're not making any deposits, you're going to be bankrupt. My last one, number 7, stop making yourself small to pacify those who are afraid of your power. Stop making yourself small to pacify those who are afraid of your power. At work, I've been told to stay in my lane. You're not a good writer. You're not a good leader. Don't speak up in meetings. You're not ready for leadership. The CEO of a company I once worked with told me to stay in my lane when he felt that I got too big for my britches. I quit that job a year later. That same company reached out to me not too long ago and asked me if I could do consulting work for them. I sent them a proposal, and they soon realized that they could no longer afford me. So don't play small for anyone. Betting on yourself is scary. Believing yourself is even scarier. But you know what is even more scarier? Staying in places that don't appreciate you. Staying in places that don't celebrate you. Letting people make you feel small, right? And I spent my 20s and 30s letting people make me feel small. But it's, you know, you want to make sure that when you're looking 5 years, 10 years from now, that you didn't leave anything on the table, right? So stop making yourself small to accommodate weak, small-minded people. Their inability to see your worth does not decrease your value.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I'm just looking at the chat, and, people are just clapping, and everyone, just, I think it just resonates with everyone, all 7 of those things. And, like I said, I mean, I think having read your post and having, been a follower of Community of 7, sometimes when I go out and I'm jogging or when I have a bad day, I think about what you've posted, and I think about some of those 7 things, and it's really helped me, and I know it's helped, all of your 300,000 followers, right? It's like you said, you're there to kind of help inspire and motivate, and it's really powerful. So talking about kind of, like, how do we fill our cups? How do we, really take care of ourselves? I mean, we've all been through this pandemic, for over 2 years. It's been really hard on every one of us. What kind of keeps you going, when you have a hard day, right? What sort of allows you to, constantly be able to refill your cup and take care of yourself, and just have that own self-motivation, during times when it can be really tough, during a pandemic, during an outbreak, or when you're having a bad day?
Right. I mean, I think what keeps me going on my hard days is definitely my daughter. The second thing is being of service. I kind of mentioned how I was kind of in this depression when I had first gotten laid off. And it was kind of my daughter that kind of got me out of it. And you don't see her right now, but she's trying to get my attention on the right hand side. Oh gosh. The other thing is, like I said, be of service. And it's hard to be depressed when you focus on the needs of others. I kind of mentioned early on that our Community of 7 LinkedIn page alone gets over 6 to 7 million impressions each month. So each post is a lesson that can positively impact someone's life. And I don't take that lightly, right? I don't see that as a business strategy to build my business, but I see it as, a vehicle where we can impact people with messages of hope, resiliency, leadership, and development. So I think the being of service is something that's really kind of gotten me through the hard days, right? Especially in the beginning of the pandemic, where you would pick up your phone and just get so depressed at what was happening in the world, right? That if I could just help one person, and I've gotten emails from people who have told me that a post has saved their life, that they were contemplating suicide, and they read something and it really resonated with me. And just me helping that one person reading that gets me going, right? because, the whole notion of building Community of Seven and the post, it was never about promoting Community of Seven. It was really about, how do I build community? How do I make people feel less alone? How do I get people through one of the most challenging periods in our lifetime, right? So each post is a micro learning or a motivation. Growing up, I would read this, I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's called The Daily Word. It's kind of like a Bible script, a daily Bible script from Unity. I think they're in Utah or something. But I wanted to create something kind of similar for executives and leaders and just people in general. I think Community 7 and our social following grew so fast because it resonated with people. And I think it was also kind of true to who I was. I'm focused singularly on my core values. And my 4 core values are my family and my friends who are my chosen family, my faith, being of service, and freedom. And so as I've built this, I've really kind of focused on my core values and making sure that it's aligned.
Great. I'm not sure if you can still hear me, Lan.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good, great. So I'm going to pivot for a second. Thank you for letting us know how you sort of persevere through those hard days. But do you think that being an Asian American woman has influenced you or impacted the decisions or like the path that you've taken in your life?
Yeah, most definitely. I think first of all, the values that my parents instilled in me, hard work, dedication, humbleness. I would say that being Asian American has both hindered me in corporate America, but also is a reason I've succeeded. There's a dichotomy, right? So there's still systemic racism in corporate America that hinders women of color and people of color in general, right? And especially in leadership position, right? We always talk about the glass ceiling. We are to be seen, not heard. I can think of so many talks I've had with other executives where, these successful leaders of color are doing the work, doing the decks, writing the pitch deck, writing the script, right? Analyzing the numbers, right? But aren't given a seat at the table. And if we have a seat at the table, right? If we're given a seat at the table, you're there for show, but you're actually not empowered to talk. So we're there to make our bosses look good because we do the work, but we're not given the credit. Being an Asian American woman in corporate America is a lifetime of not belonging. Most women of color have scratches and bruises from climbing the ladder of success, right? Assimilation leads, and if you assimilate, you basically erase who you are. But in order to succeed, it's almost a requirement to assimilate. So there lies the dilemma. So there's a popular saying that many women of color say, people of color, that you have to work twice as hard for half the pay. You have to be excellent just to be considered, right?
Mm-hmm.
For any of you guys that are watching the Congress hearing right now with the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson, this is basically systemic racism in full view, right? She is an exemplary, brilliant mind that is accomplished, and she's being interrogated by people who are not, don't have the talent of her finger, pinky finger, right? But she's questioned for her talents or her smarts. She's an Ivy League. She's brilliant, right? Her resume speaks, but she's still taught, like, she's basically, told that she's only there because she's Black. It's bullshit, right? As I've gotten older, I've been really questioning that whole thought of you have to work twice as hard for half the pay. And now I'm rewriting that. I'm going to work half as less for twice the pay. So it took me a while, but I stopped waiting for an invite at the table. I'm not going to wait to be welcomed into someone else's table. I'm going to build my own damn table. Shoot, I'm going to add some seats. I'm going to send the elevator down, and I'm going to invite some friends to join me. We're taught to wait for our turn. I'm saying no, build your own table. Whether it's changing jobs, building your own company, freelancing, leaving places where you aren't treated fairly, and going to places where you're welcomed. I'm no longer content with being at places where I'm tolerated. I will only grace my presence where I will be celebrated.
Right. Someone just wrote in the chat that she's got tears in her eyes, and it's so true. I mean, I think for all of us as women of color, I mean, we have always worked so hard and, you know, to try to get that seat at the table, but it is really about building our own tables. And it's been great to see a lot of women like yourself do that this past year, because we don't want to face that BS anymore, frankly, right? And we all need to kind of band together and continue to help each other build our tables. So that's very enlightening. So you talked about Morgan, your daughter, and she's right there. So how do you balance all of this? How do you balance building a company, consulting with executives and C-suites, and coaching other people with having a daughter?
It hasn't been easy. Anyone that says that work-life balance exists is lying to you.
Mhm.
I think what's helped for me is that I've literally built my life around my core values and what's important to me. After I got laid off of Fortune, I really had time and space to dig into my purpose and my values. And I realized that I never really crystallized what was important to me, right? And it was during this reflection time where I realized that, you know, my North Star, my values was my family and my friends, my faith, helping others, and freedom. But none of the jobs I've had in the past aligned with that, right? So I thought Fortune was my dream job, and I thought that was my forever job, right? But then on reflection, I was working till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I say family was the most important thing to me, but I would see my daughters on the weekend because I'd be going home so late. There's a disconnect. I said that helping people was important, but all of my jobs in the past was helping build, making millions of dollars for these corporations. There's a disconnect. So I think what's made the difference is I built my business around my values. And I think for other folks who are on this call that aren't building businesses, find a company that values you. You know, one of the best advice I got was in my 20s, and it was this. Sorry, my daughter, sorry. Okay, give me 1 second, okay? Okay, sorry. Sorry, guys. Morgan, come here. If you're gonna interrupt me, say hi to them. Come here. Come here. I know. Sorry. If she's gonna interrupt, she's gonna say hi. Say hi.
Hi, Morgan.
You almost broke my wrist.
Oh gosh, come on, exaggerator. But you know, it's this whole notion of like building your life around your values. So if you're working for a company, find a place that values who you are as a person, right? Which is really kind of important to me, right? And always making my daughter a priority, right? That I'm not going to ever find work for a company that makes me travel 80% of the time and where I'm not able to be myself, right? So, you know, I think that's kind of how I've been able to kind of maintain it, but there's no such thing as work-life balance because you're always going to, it's like juggling, right? One ball is going to fall. You just got to learn. I mean, I love quotes. One of my favorite quotes is from Oprah. You can have everything you want, just not all at once. And I think I've been kind of like learned that there's don't seek perfection, seek progress. And it's like I one step at a time, you know, and I'm not going to be the best mother all the time. I'm not going to be the best entrepreneur. I'm not going to be the best, whatever it is. I'm just going to do the best while I can, while I'm here, while I'm on this earth.
So, no, that's great. I know a lot of us, well, I know I was for a long time seeking that work-life balance. and realizing that it's not real, right? And I love that quote from Oprah as well. It's just, we can't have it all at once. And we do the best that we can and take it day by day.
One of my friends would say that as working mothers, we're managing guilt. So you're not, you're either feeling guilty that you're not the best mother, or you're feeling guilty because you're not the best worker, or you're feeling guilty because you're not the best wife. Ladies, we're doing the best we can. Just give yourself some grace.
Yes, thank you. That's a good reminder. And it was especially hard during the pandemic, right? I think, to do any of those things. So when you think of another woman in your life that has inspired you, can you share a little bit about who that person is and why they inspire you?
Definitely. So who inspired me? This woman never made more than $10,000 in her career. She didn't have a college degree. It was my mother. So from my mother, I learned about kindness and self-sacrifice. I learned about hard work. My father was disabled, so my mother supported our family of 5 on her income, first as someone cleaning laundry and then as a hairdresser. We didn't have much in terms of money, but my mom would save each month and donate to the poor, and also in the temples in Vietnam. She taught me about the power of kindness and the power of being service to others. And so more than any other woman, she's definitely been the person that's influenced me the most.
Wonderful. Thank you. I wish I could meet your mother. She sounds amazing.
Yes, she is.
So Christine, I was going to ask if there are any questions, or, I would love to open the floor if you have questions to use the Q&A chat. So while we're trying to curate some questions, I wanted to do some rapid fire questions. I love doing this during panels. So I'm going to ask a series of 5 questions, and you'll have about 15 seconds to answer. So what's on your nightstand?
Okay, this is going to sound like a shameless plug, but it's so true. I have my manuscript, so I'm writing my first book. It's called Tough Love Tuesdays. And it's a daily book of inspiration and hope. And I'm currently proofing it. So it's actually on my nightstand.
Yay. Okay. What song would be fine on your main playlist, whether you're on Pandora or Spotify?
Definitely, We Don't Talk About Bruno. I have a 7-year-old home, so literally that's playing all the time. A little bit too much, because we talk about Bruno all the time.
Yeah, that was a great movie. What show are you binging right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm so obsessed with this Netflix show called Life After Death with Tyler Perry. I think about death a lot. I know that sounds really morbid. I was talking about my mother, and she has dementia right now. So it's almost like being someone who you're kind of slowly losing while they're still alive. And so I think about death a lot. And it's also kind of centers me and makes me realize that we have to live each day to our fullest, because tomorrow's not guaranteed.
That's right. When was the last time you cried?
I feel like I cry every day. I'm like, definitely, I'm a hugger and I'm also a crier. So I watch movies and like commercials and I will cry. So I definitely cried probably today, probably yesterday too.
Are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Both. Anything with caffeine.
Anything with caffeine. And then what did you cook for dinner last night?
So you assume I cook. My husband is actually the one that cooks. It's funny because, when I talk to my core group, I always say, don't limit yourself, with your words, like I'm a terrible this, I'm a terrible that. And I'm like, I am okay with saying I'm a terrible cook because I don't want to cook. Not a skill set I want to learn. So my husband does the cooking. So yes, there's that.
Oh, that's great. And what did he make? Just curious.
Oh my God, he made one of my favorite dishes that he makes is chicken curry. He's Jamaican, and he makes a wicked chicken curry.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Thank you. That was really fun. Do we have any questions, Christine?
Sure. There's one question in the chat that's asking, Lan, what is the name of your book going to be? And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So right now it's tentatively called Tough Love Tuesday, and it's basically a daily inspiration, because every Tuesday I basically have a Tough Love Tuesday where I give tough love to, like only a mother would give, right? Because I think about all the tough love that my mom has given me throughout the years, and not everyone has that kind of centeredness in their life. So I think the people who love us the most are the ones that give us the toughest lessons and will tell us things that we don't want to hear. So it's called Tough Love Tuesday. And so I'm hoping it'll be out sometime early next year.
So exciting. And you've always given me tough love. So thank you.
Because I love you. That's why.
And we have another question. If you were going to change your career to do anything that you wanted when you were 25, what would it have been?
See, that's the thing. I've been spending, in my 25, what I thought I would do is much different than what I'm doing now. And in my 20s, I think I wanted what other people wanted. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The cool job, the cool title, power, money. I don't give a shit about that anymore, right? So it's morphed. So, I mean, I was in the music industry for a while. I thought I wanted to be successful in it, and I was in it, and I was like, I hate this. This is so shallow, And I feel like I've been trying to search for my purpose. And I think a lot of people who are maybe on this call can also relate. I'm 47 now. I'm proud to say I'm 47. It took me 47 years to figure out what my passion and my purpose was. It's not too late, right?
Mhm.
And I've literally, since I was 18, 17, what is my purpose? What am I going to do for the rest of my life? I just wouldn't know, right? And I would go from one thing to the next. And, I mentioned I was in the music industry and I jumped careers a lot. And when I finally went into marketing, I remember having regret that I didn't go into marketing as soon as I graduated Stanford, because I would be so much higher up, or I would be at, P&G or Unilever and doing marketing. And I realized that wasn't my path. I said that's what I wanted, to be a CMO at this big corporation, but that's not what I really wanted. I wasn't passionate about marketing. It's what other people wanted, or that it's what I thought would give me respect, or all this other stuff. And as you get older, you realize that none of that matters. What matters is your family. No one is at the deathbed thinking, I wish I had spent more time at the office. You think about, how can I impact people? When I leave this earth, will I have lived my life to the fullest? And I can honestly say that in my 20s and 30s, I was not living my life to the fullest. I was living for other people. And until we change that, until we stop caring what other people think, until we stop caring about people's Instagram, none of that shit matters, right? Find what brings you alive and then just follow that, right?
Mhm. It's like finding.
Sorry,
our
I cuss a little bit too much. This is kind of me being authentic of who I am and how I talk in the normal real world.
Yes, you're definitely an authentic leader. And yeah, I think it is interesting how, a lot of us, it takes a lot of time. And someone said in the chat, it is a process to find, what really brings you joy. And I think that quote of just, there's just something better on that other side of fear, and fear does definitely hold people back, right? And you don't want to suck at anything, but
everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
Love, the next career, the next business, the next baby, the next fill in the blank, right? Yeah. And once again, I love quotes. One of my other favorite quotes is, jump and the net will appear. And I think that's kind of faith, right? I talk about I never talked about God and faith in the past because it was taboo, but this is who I am. So I am authentically going to be myself wherever I go. So if I say a potty word, if I say shit or whatnot, this is just who I am, right? And I'm going to be myself no matter where I am in the world. And before, I used to kind of contortion and change who I am to fit these companies and these businesses. I pick my clients now. I've said no to a lot of work because it wasn't conducive to my values, or they wanted me to be someone else. I'm going to 100% be who I am. And if you don't like it, there's, billions of other people in the world you can go to, but I'm going to be me.
That's right. And I just chuckle, and Christine, you probably know this too. You've said this a couple of times in the conversation. You love quotes. Since I've known you, you've always had quotes beautifully framed in your house. And so Community of Seven has just like brought that to life.
Well, so there's a funny story behind it, Lee. So growing up in a Vietnamese family, right? My dad, I mean, he spoke English, but he didn't really know how to communicate with me. So he would have me memorize all of these quotes. So there was this one book, and I don't even know what the title of the book was because it was so, the cover was off, but he would have me memorize all of these quotes because that was his way of teaching me about life. Because I don't think he knew how to teach me because there was such a cultural divide, right? So even though I'm so fully proud I'm Vietnamese, I was also very Americanized because I came here when I was 8 months old. So for my dad, having me memorize these quotes was such a part of my DNA. So I quote things all the time. And the hard part with quotes and is that you memorize so many quotes that sometimes you say something, you're like, oh, that's so brilliant. And I'm like, wait, that wasn't my idea. That was an actual quote. So that's my only kind of one fear with quotes is like, I don't want to ever plagiarize, but I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah, but we all need a constant reminder, even though we might have heard that quote, but to actually see it. And that's what's great about Community of Seven, just to see it land, on the LinkedIn post. And it's like, oh yes, and it can make, you're right, it can make everyone's day. I mean, it's made my day and it's motivated me when I've had tough days. So how can people get involved with Community of Seven?
They can go to communityofseven.com. As I mentioned, I launched this supporter membership at just $99 a year, and I do monthly coaching circles. So it's a good way to kind of just get leadership and development. I tried to make it the lowest price point possible. There's core membership, but that's kind of invite only. And if you are in an organization that does training and development, I'd love to come in. I do corporate training on leadership for companies, Fortune 500 companies, but also smaller companies. So contact me, go to communityofseven.com, go on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and look for Community of Seven, and you can find me there.
Awesome. Do it today as soon as we're out. But thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Lan, so much. Christine, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I really appreciate Lan and Lee for being here with us today and for sharing so freely. And many thanks to the community members who have joined us. We appreciate your time and energy. Please fill out any session surveys and our general conference survey. We really would love your feedback so we can continue growing as we put these conferences together. Thank you to the County of San Mateo and our director, Tanya Beat, and the entire Commission on the Status of Women for pulling together to create this conference. We as women and myself as a woman of color, I know this work can be very difficult and complicated. So let's continue to be compassionate and thoughtful on how we listen to one another and build communities. Let us all continue to create safe spaces for one another and help lift each other up and rise. And we thank you all for this amazing conference.
Yay.
Everyone be safe and well.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Bye,
having
everyone.
us. Bye.
Thank you.